Piotr is the professor of management at Wrocław University of Economics and Business. His scientific interest concentrates on business valuation, externalities, external cost, energy transition, and circular economy. He's a member of Climate Reality Project and the Polish Business Values Association, as well as a member and co-founder of the Green Team at the Wrocław University. Together with Easy Square, he also worked on inclusive EV and scaling. So thanks, Piotr, for being our panelist for today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Benedetta. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. After a short introduction, I would like to present two cases of financing investments in renewable energy sources of the process of thermal modernization of multifamily buildings. The cases are based on experience of our project Easy Square partner, Housing Cooperative Wrocław South. The next point of the speech contains a short-term business model of the last project. Finally, an analysis of selected factors influencing the investment of financing in renewable energy sources by citizens and energy communities. Citizens energy communities are crucial for a just, clean energy transition, reducing the economies, emissions, and limiting negative external costs associated with the transformation. Citizens have urbanized areas that should be utilized for the production of electrical and thermal energy. This is much more environmental friendly than converting, for example, agricultural fields into photovoltaic farms. Furthermore, this energy can be largely consumed on site. There are numerous barriers and challenges associated with the establishment of energy communities in individual countries. We wrote about these barriers in our report last year, which is available in our project website. Today's meeting is dedicated of financial matters. The financing of the project carried out by citizens and energy communities is closely linked to the cost efficient and efficiency of these projects. The economic and financial landscape has been rapidly changing in the past 3 years, including on one hand, rising fossil fuels prices caused by Russian invasion on Ukraine, an increase in CO2 emission permit prices based on EU emission trading system, increasing electricity and heat prices, and energy poverty issue. Some data indicates that 20% of EU residents are at risk of energy poverty. Inflation and rising interest rates for residents' loan is also another factor. On the other hand, we observe falling prices of photovoltaic modules worldwide due to the oversupply in China, growing interest in heat pumps in European Union countries. Only in Poland last year, 180,000 heat pumps were sold last year. We observe also the investment in heat pump production, for instance, in our team region, Lower Silesia, 3 factories with annual production capacity of 300,000 units are being built. In the case of financing individual renewable energy projects by citizens and energy communities, there are many similarities. In both cases, time needs to be dedicated to organizing the process and securing and the necessary financing. In the case of energy communities, the process of creating the community and preparing the investment is more complex and time-consuming. This process is also incurs cost and requires financing. In the project, we analyzed the dominant financing model is based on own contribution, subsidies, and preferential loans. So next, I would like to use the example of housing cooperative Wrocław Salt, our partner in EC Square project. The cooperative manages 100 multi-family buildings with 3,000 inhabitants. The buildings are 50 years old or more, and the residents are mostly retired. In the past, the cooperative has already made investments in the field of buildings thermal modernization and in the field of optimization of the heat supplied to buildings. In 2015, concerns arose that the prices of electricity and heat energy would increase in coming years. The response to the risk was the creation of Wrocław solar power plant on the roofs of 35 10-story buildings where approximately 15,000 people live. The project was implemented in next 2 years. The installation has a power of 739 kilowatt peak. The installation allowed to meet the demand for electricity in common pool areas like elevators, corridors, hydroforce. Unfortunately, the billing system doesn't allow the electricity produced to be used for other purposes. For example, by residents in apartments. As a result, the level of auto-consumption is lower than it could be. The electricity from photovoltaic is fed into electricity grid. And 30% of the energy is taken by the energy oligopoly. Unfortunately, energy companies have more influence on energy market regulations than citizens. In Poland, elderly people are afraid to take out bank loans. Therefore, an interesting financial montage was constructed. The financing of the project was in 40% based on a grant and 60% on a preferential loan for the 10-year period. Thanks to this, the project loan is repaid from electricity savings. In the meantime, electricity costs in Poland have increased and the payback period shortened from 9 years to 7.5 years in this year. Even though this price is subsidized by the state and doesn't cover the full cost of electricity production, if market prices for electricity were assumed, the simply payback period would be 3.5 years. Second challenge in Poland, the second challenge which I want to describe during my presentation is strictly related with the district's heating system. In Poland, 60 million people used heat from district heating system produced in cogeneration way, but mainly from hard coal, unfortunately. After Russia's aggression against Ukraine, regulated prices of heat from district heating system in Poland covered only half of the cost of energy production. As a result, in coming years, it can be expected that the cost of heat for residents will increase by 100%. Already in 2017, the housing cooperative South, Wrocław South, began design work to create a solution that would limit the risk of increasing the cost of heat, energy, and hot water. After 7 years of arrangements and investment process, the cooperative launched the pilot project a few months ago, which is a response to this challenge. The project for 700 residents combine photovoltaics, heat pumps, and district heating, as well as improving the building insulation. This is a project, the first of its kind in Poland. Electricity from photovoltaics is used primarily to power heat pumps. As a part of the project, the building's insulation was changed. A hybrid installation was installed in and the pipe insulation was also improved. This is the example how this installation photovoltaics models look like on this quarter on this building. The total investment expenditure amounted to 15 million Polish zloty and include 40 million Polish zloty for building insulation modernization and about 800,000 for the hybrid installation. What did the financing model look like? 9 million Polish zloty was covered by internal loan from renovation fund of residents of other buildings from housing cooperative Wrocław South. 3 million Polish zloty was covered by the residents' own contribution. 1.5 million was covered by subsidies from public funds and residents, and the same amount was covered by preferential loan from public funds, 3 times cheaper than in commercial bank. Thanks to the building thermal modernization, the heat demand should drop by 74%. The simple payback period for investment outlays is long and depends on whether we assume subsidized heat prices or market prices. Due to the fact that system heat in Poland is produced from coal, the environmental effect is quite large and amounts to nearly 900 tons of CO2 reduction per year. A hybrid installation provides 30% of the domestic hot water demand throughout the year. At the same time, thanks to lower heat losses, the heat demand for water heating decreased by 60%. And finally, the simple payback period is between 5 and 3 years, depending on whether we assume subsidized or market price for heat. And the environmental effect is also important. The overall effects of the project is even more impressive. The current payback period for the project is quite long. It's quite long, from 15 to 26 years, but residents expect that the prices of district heating will increase and the resistance to these changes has increased. Residents are proud of the project. Environmental effects are significant, and the apartment apartments value will increase. They expect that will increase. Due to the fact that most of the roof is still free, it would be possible to ensure 100% of demand for domestic hot water and heat in the future. So in the next part, let's look at the business model very briefly. This is the simplified business model of Wrocław solar power plant part 2, which is based on the Canvas business model. This is adopted to the sustainable business model solution, taking into account not only typical economic effects, but also social, environmental, and risk factors and their mitigation. The most of this data was described in previous. I think that we can turn to the last point. At the end, I want to highlight some factors influencing the financing of investments in renewable energy sources by citizens and energy communities. The energy demand for electricity and heat in different countries is influenced by various factors, including geographic location, as shown in the slide. Energy consumption per capita in residential buildings varies significantly among different countries. For example, Austria heat demand is over 3 times higher than that of Spain. Meanwhile, electricity consumption for lighting and electrical appliance in Poland is roughly half of the Netherlands. What is interesting, the total energy consumption in Poland and Italy is similar. On the other hand, a photovoltaic installation of the same capacity will generate twice as much energy in Italy than it would be in Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands. Benedetta, how much time I have?
I would say 2 minutes to wrap up everything.
Okay.
Then we can start with the panel discussion. Thank you.
In the next slide, I try to show the structure of energy consumption. The structure is slightly different. If we divide into electricity and heat, we exhibit similarities between the Netherlands, Italy, and Poland. Spain, on the other hand, stands out as different. So geographic location also affects the production of energy from renewable sources, as I said previously. So the ability to finance renewable energy investment by individual citizens or energy communities also influenced by residents' income, electricity and heat prices, and the billing system. As shown in this slide, disposable income in Poland is nearly 3 times lower than in Germany, but purchasing power parity is better, standing at 80% of the EU average. Another crucial factor is the price of electricity and heat for residents, which can have a market-driven nature, as in the Netherlands, or be regulated and subsidized, as in Poland. However, public subsidies for energy are not sustainable in the long term. In Poland, annual subsidies for household electricity amount of 10 billion euros yearly. So as a result, the cost of electricity provided by energy oligopolies varies significantly across Europe, with Poland and Spain having electricity prices twice as low as those in the Netherlands. The third row of the table shows how electricity prices for residents would change without subsidies in Poland. And probably the last slide presents an example where 5 kilowatt peak photovoltaic installation is assumed to cover the annual electricity needs and domestic hot water and heat, multiplied, of course, by the heat pump for a 4-person family in small, approximately 100 square meters passive house. In reality, in some region in Italy and Spain, we need only probably the half of this photovoltaic installation. The investment cost for a similar PV installation in Germany and the Netherlands are twice as high as in Spain and Poland. And considering purchasing power, financing PV investment it's much easier in Austria than in Italy or Poland. The forms of financial support from public authorities also playing a significant role, but this data don't take into account public support. So if you take into account this public support, the payback period for photovoltaic investment is 3 to 4 years in Italy, 14 years in Austria. The situation in Poland is unique, where investment made in 2021 billed under net metering pay off in 6 years, and with a 70% increase in electricity prices next year, as many experts predict, this period will be shortened to 3.5 years. However, for currently realized investments billed under the net billing system, that the payback period cannot be estimated. Thank you for your attention. I see the time for my presentation is over. So
thank you, Piotr.
The rest of the information can be found in the materials. Thank you.
We will also have time later for questions. So in the panel discussion, you can write them in the chat, and Piotr will address them as soon as possible. Thank you, Piotr, for your introduction and for your really interesting presentation. I would now leave the floor to our panelists. So first we will have Chris Vrettos from REScoop. I can't find it. Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us. So Chris is working for REScoop EU, so the European Federation of Energy Cooperatives, focusing on financing, policy, and advocacy. He has worked on multiple research programs as an assistant on topics such as the Green Deal and degrowth. Is interested in international climate politics and journalism, and has attended multiple UN FCCC COPs. Chris will tell us about the REScoop model and approach to citizen and communities' financial participation in energy cooperatives. So Chris, the floor is yours. You can share your slides if you have any, or...
Yeah, indeed. So thanks a lot. Good morning, Benedetta. Good morning, everyone. I will start by sharing my presentation. I'll try to make it as short as possible, and please feel free to also interrupt me if there's any questions or comments on the content. You should be able to see it now. Yeah, okay. So, well, the question on everyone's minds, where is the money when we're about to make a citizen energy project, and where is it going to come from? Super quickly, just to say that REScoop EU is the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives. We represent more than 2,500 energy cooperatives from across Europe, in turn representing more than 2 million EU citizens. Of course, all these conversations we have, and I'm guessing you've been having the Community Energy Academy of how can people really get the energy transition into their own hands. Sometimes it can sound a bit utopic, you say, oh, this sounds good, but can it really work on paper? And there was this groundbreaking study in 2016 by the Technical University of Delft that showed that by 2050, half of EU citizens could be producing their own energy, meeting 45% of the EU's electricity demand. So really, this goes to show the level of potential for citizens to get involved in the energy transition. And this is exactly the institutional recognition of this potential that came at the EU level in 2019 with the Clean Energy for All Europeans package of directives. I'm guessing you've already talked about this, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but just to say that indeed these directives call for the creation of a legal and enabling framework for energy communities in every member state. And when we say enabling framework, we mean access to information, we mean access to financing, we mean access to capacity building so that local communities, including local authorities, know how to set up an energy community and how to get the funding for it. So creating the right financing tools and supporting energy communities financially is not just something that's nice, it's something that member states are legally obliged to do based on the EU directives, just to be clear on that. So what are the benefits of energy communities? What is what sets apart the cooperative model, the REScoop model, with, let's say, a private energy project? Well, first of all, the main idea is that the revenues actually stay within the local community. In fact, a study by the largest French energy cooperative association, Energy Partagée, showed that for every 2.5 euros that are invested in a citizen, for every euro that is invested in a citizen energy project, 2.5 euros are generated for the local economy. And this helps citizens, by investing in local energy projects, stabilize the price of energy, build that local resilience, which of course is more important than ever, as Piotr also highlighted with the invasion of Ukraine. Now as well with what's happening in Gaza, we see how volatile market prices are to changes in geopolitical settings. So that's why we need to build that local resilience, and even more so with local citizen-led democratic energy projects. And this is what sets apart community energy projects, that they build that local acceptance. And of course, they build also the digital and innovative base for citizens to be able to respond to the digital and twin and the green twin transitions of the Green Deal. You know, we are going to have a more and more complex energy system as we move forward. We're going to have demand response, we're going to have electric mobility, self-consumption. So really, citizens will need to be more empowered in how they produce and consume their own energy. Going back to the Clean Energy for All Europeans package of directives, this basically creates the framework for citizens to participate in all sectors of the energy market, energy and electricity market. I'm going to show you some examples, including making a brief mention in the end of how these energy cooperatives are financing their projects. Well, the most obvious one is production and supply. We have the largest energy cooperatives in Europe, such as EcoPower in Belgium, REScoop in France, and Som Energia in Spain, which are all both producers. So they have renewable energy installations, but also suppliers, which means they supply their members or clients, they don't have to be members, with clean energy. And of course, it's very important to note that usually it is the case that this energy is below market price, because these cooperatives are, of course, they do want to be economically viable, but their goal is not to squeeze out as much profit as possible from their members, as is the case with private suppliers. And I think this is also very important to highlight in the context of the energy crisis. Of course, there is a part of the Ukrainian invasion to blame, of the Russian invasion, but we should also remember that a large profit margin that was squeezed out by suppliers, and they made these huge and excess profits on the backs of consumers during these 2 years of the energy crisis, this is largely to blame for the price shocks that we have been experiencing. It's not that there is a shortage of fossil fuels, it's that there is let's say an overt push of capitalist monopolies and large enterprises. So in the case of such energy cooperatives as EcoPower, for example, exactly because they have a very large portfolio of projects, and they can show to a commercial bank or an ethical bank or a cooperative bank that they can absorb the risk. You know, they have the credit line. It's really a safe investment. They can access bank loans. So usually these larger cooperatives, that's how they actually finance their projects. It's a much more straightforward process than it is for smaller cooperatives. Another activity is collective self-consumption. So I'm using here the example of Hyperion from Greece. It's actually an energy community that I'm a member in the board of directors, where a collective renewable energy installation is placed somewhere off-site, so it doesn't have to be on the rooftops of the members. And then all of the energy that is produced there is metered with the energy that is consumed at the members' households or offices or buildings or whatever. And this is actually a quite favorable model. The payback period with current energy prices is about 3.5 years. So really, in a sense, for the 25 years lifespan of the project, the members of collective self-consumption don't pay any energy bills because they zero out. So it's a straightforward business plan, and it's easy to attract members. But because you meter your energy, you don't make a profit. You don't see money coming into your account. This is something that banks, at least in Greece, don't recognize as a bankable, let's say, venture. So they don't give loans to these self-consumption projects. And it's usually the case that members are self-financing it. So they're putting their own shares to cover their own energy needs. And of course, there's always the case of donations. I will talk about this a bit later as well with the example of Hyperion, of how other cooperatives across Europe can sometimes step in and help out a starting cooperative through a donation or a small, low interest loan. Another activity, and I think this is not very often talked about, that energy communities can engage in, is housing retrofits and energy sobriety, of course. We have the very good example of energy communities Tipperary Cooperative in Ireland. It basically functions as a one-stop shop for community-led renovations. So it's a group of people that there's a board in this organization. It's all locals, members of the local community. And what they do is they assist everyone in the local community in all stages of a housing retrofit process. So they link them with local experts, they oversee the project implementation, and of course, they facilitate the application of the house owner to public grants. So the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland is producing giving out grants exactly for homeowners to renovate their households. And usually, you know, these public grants can be a bit bureaucratic and it sounds scary. And that's why Energy Communities Tipperary Cooperative helps out the homeowners with preparing and filing their application to renovate their houses. And they've really had a huge impact. As you can see the numbers here in bold, they've renovated hundreds of households and mobilized more than 10.2 million euros in investment. So this is how this, for example, business model operates. This is how this energy community makes their money, through service provision, but as well as through procuring government grants. And we're going to talk a bit more about the role of public funds in helping out energy communities a bit later. Just to say that as REScoop EU, we are coordinating a live project. It's called Access to Community Energy, Access to Capital for Community Energy, ACE. And it's a big consortium with actually some of the biggest energy cooperatives in Europe, as you can see from the logos on the right. And the goal is exactly to highlight what are the currently in place and the ones under development community energy financing schemes. How do people do it? How do the more mature energy cooperatives do it, such as in the Netherlands or in France? And how are the more starting cooperatives do it, like in Croatia or some examples in Spain? I think one of the clearest, let's say, front runners and one of the biggest and most established citizen energy financing schemes comes from the Netherlands. There is the famous development fund, which is basically it's a fund to help starting energy cooperatives with the development phases of their projects. The funding is provided by the government and for the national government and for regional governments. It only helps out energy cooperatives, so this is not for, let's say, energy companies or something like that. And the actual fund is managed by a consortium of ethical banks, but Energy Summon, which is the, let's say, national energy cooperative organization, is the one that reviews the projects of energy cooperatives that should be financed to make sure that actually the money goes to genuine citizen-led energy projects that have an influence on the ground, so as to ensure that there's no embezzlement or waste of public money. And this is quite important here to facilitate this link between government agencies and a cooperative organization to help identify the best practices and to channel the money into the best case studies. The money is offered as interest-free loans to the selected projects of cooperatives. Of course, there is also a success fee. So should the project actually move forward, should it become operational, there is a small success fee on top of that. And it doesn't just stop there. So beyond the development fund, which is about the starting phases of the project, when the project is more riskier and when really public funds are needed to help get the project off the ground, to de-risk it, then Energy Summon facilitates the growth of the project through different stages of financing. So should it pass the development stage, it goes into the equity phase, where the project is opened up to actual equity from investors, from citizens, from all sorts of people. And then we get actually to the realization part, which is the final part, and that's where we open it up to much larger bank loans. So imagine at this stage, we're talking about very, very big energy projects. This is why you also see the millions here, the hundreds of millions, because we're talking about these huge, let's say, wind parks, for example. 100 megawatt wind parks, these kind of things. Of course, this is quite unique in the case of the Netherlands or maybe Belgium, or usually the cooperative movement in Europe, we're talking about smaller projects, smaller levels of investment. But this is just to show like how big the size of the cooperative movement in some countries. So to scale you back down to more like, the reality of, let's say, maybe Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, other cases, there's other crowdfunding instruments such as crowd investment. We see this in Greece and Croatia. When we talk about crowd investment, we talk about an open platform where citizens from all over Europe, it doesn't just have to be from the selected country, can invest a small or medium amount into a project, a citizen-led energy project. So imagine from 100 euros all the way to 10,000 euros, all the way to 50,000 euros, but it's like a small to medium size investment. So specifically for Croatia, it was very interesting that they partnered, ZES, the energy cooperative ZES, partnered with the city of Kričevci, definitely pronouncing that wrong. Sorry if there's any Croatians in the crowd. And what they did is, through this crowd investment campaign, they procured the rooftop of a public building in the city. You can see the photo here on the right. And through 53 micro investments, averaging about 500 euros, they created the solar park. And now this solar installation is covering the needs of this public building. And the city is paying back the micro investors with a 4 to 5% interest rate over the period of 10 years. So this is a way both to engage the local municipality and members of the local community, all of this mediated through a trusted local energy cooperative, which is, in this case, is ZES. In Greece, and this is what I was talking about, the example of inter-cooperative solidarity, through the crowd investment platform Genervest, we have managed to we ran a successful crowdfunding campaign for Hyperion, the energy community that I'm a member of as well. And it was very interesting because actually Copernico, the largest energy cooperative of Portugal, invested, I think it was between 10 to 15,000 euros in the energy community. That's really showing this mode of inter-cooperative solidarity from larger cooperatives to more starting ones, and how at the European level we can really help each other grow and build these new energy projects. And finally, of course, when we're really talking about super small, super starting contexts, such as is the case in Serbia with Elektropioneer, the first energy community in the country, they created an 8 kilowatt solar system, again, with the collaboration of a local municipality. And in Albania, in the south, in the municipality of Piskova, there was a 3 kilowatt solar system that helps reduce irrigation costs. So in both of these cases, REScoop EU, and of course, many other people from the community energy movement in Europe, we used our networks, we used our platforms to just run a simple crowdfunding campaign. So not a crowd investment, not anything like that, just a donation-based campaign. We raised a couple thousand euros and we helped create these lighthouse projects. And this is what I basically really want to emphasize with this example, that the networks are there. There is REScoop EU. We hold our annual spring gathering where we bring together energy communities from all over Europe. This year it's going to be in the Czech Republic in about, I think it's May. So really that is a space to network, that is a space to meet newer, more established, in-between cooperatives, build these relationships. And of course, there is other networks as well, such as the Community Power Coalition. And finally, just to say here that all of the examples I mentioned before in regards to up and running or under development citizen energy financing schemes that the ACE project has studied, this is all available in this report that maybe I can send to Benedetta, and in turn you can disseminate. So you can really take the time to look through a specific country or a specific financing scheme that you think is of interest. And yeah, just for the last part of the presentation, I want to say that we're talking a lot about how citizens can mobilize the finance for the community energy financing schemes, but I think it's super important to also talk about what is the role of public finance and where it should come in to de-risk, as we saw in the Netherlands, especially the starting steps of a community energy project. For example, from covering starting costs like legal, technical, administrative, preparing the environmental impact studies, preparing the impact assessment. And it's important to educate managing authorities that after the starting steps as well, energy communities should be supported across all stages of project development. It's been many cases, it has happened in Greece, in Ireland, in Spain, that an energy cooperative takes months or even years to prepare an application. They get the project, they really get it to the last stage. They even put the solar panels on the ground. And then the grid operator says, oh, but you need to pay an exorbitant amount of money in order to create, let's say, enhance the local substation, enhance the network so you can, feed in your energy into the grid. And then basically the energy community dissolves because they don't have the money to pay for the grid upgrade. So that could be another, the issue with the grid is a really big problem across Europe. I think it's something that we're all facing. So it is something that we should look into as well as with public funds. And this is what we try to do with the Public Financing Tracker project. This is available on the REScoop EU website. We're tracking to what extent member states are using their recovery and resilience facility, their cohesion and regional development funds, and their modernization funds to support energy communities. It's a quite interesting project. And in fact, we just launched as well the Repower EU tracker. So looking at how member states have been using the recent updates to the recovery and resilience plans and the Repower EU chapters to support energy communities. And in fact, there's quite a lot of movement happening right now in Europe. We saw with the REPowerEU chapters, Latvia, Lithuania, Spain, Czechia, Hungary, pushing through very important reforms and investments to facilitate energy sharing, to facilitate energy communities, and of course, support them as well with necessary investments. Yeah, and just to say that, you know, all of this might sound scary sometimes, and I know it can be daunting to navigate the process of setting up an energy community, making it financially viable, but this is what network organizations like REScoop EU are here to help you with. That was all. Thanks a lot. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you a lot, Chris. And as also Piotr showed before, it's really interesting to see how needed are different funding schemes to respond to different needs and to different phases of projects. So thank you a lot. If you have any questions.
Yeah, Benedetta, maybe we ask the questions because I understood that Chris cannot stay with us longer.
I actually can.
Okay.
You can?
Probably
Okay.
not till the very end, but yeah, I can.
Yes, we can leave it. We can ask questions now, or we can have the other presentation with Julia and then have the panel discussion later with more general question and just stay in the plenary, if that's okay also for Chris. If you can say, okay. Then I would then leave the floor to Julia. Julia, you can share your screen. If sorry, I can't hear. I didn't hear properly. Okay, yes, perfect. So Julia works at CoopTech Hub. She's responsible for supporting the development of energy communities and securing funds for them. She's a master's student in sustainable development at the University of Warsaw and a member of the student council at the USBC faculty. She will introduce for us today an innovative civic urban renewable energy power plants developed for 2 different areas in the city of Warsaw. For me, it's frozen, but I don't know if it's my internet connection.
Frozen.
It looks fine to me. Okay. So I think it will update soon.
Thank you.
Okay, so you see my presentation, right?
Yes, thank you, Julia.
Yeah, but Julia, we cannot see the whole screen, you know, so you have to enlarge it. Because we see all...
Just to presentation.
Yes. Now it's okay.
Yeah, now it's yeah, now it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, everything is okay now, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's start. So good morning, everyone. I'm excited to discuss the ways to finance urban renewable energy power plants. But before I tell you more about it, I'd like to give you some context. In Poland, energy cooperatives can only be established in rural or urban rural municipalities. And we as CoopTech Hub, together with our partners, we are running a project to establish the first urban renewable energy cooperative in Warsaw, to be more precise, in Jazdów. So it can be seen as a small revolution, I would say. We want to establish a cooperative that will have provisions for producing energy from photovoltaic installation and its statute. Yeah, so energy cooperatives should not be limited to certain communities or municipalities. Everyone should have the right to become a member of energy cooperative. and we will be testing this model. Yeah, so in Europe, there are about 3,500 energy cooperatives, but in Poland, there are only a few, and they are not allowed to be established in cities. So this is a significant barrier to development of energy communities in urban areas. However, there are other options for creating energy communities in the city, like housing cooperatives. Communities and associations can set up photovoltaic farms or install photovoltaic system on apartment buildings and multi-family houses. So if building managers and their residents are willing to set up photovoltaic installation, for example, on the roof of a building, flats, it can lead to creation large urban power plants. I mentioned some obstacles, but when it comes to the key factors that encourage the establishment of energy communities, it's the funding and grants. I would say more about public funding based on support or engagement of government. So grants and subsidies are one of the key incentives for creating energy communities and installing photovoltaic panels. In Poland, there are two main grants programs for energy communities. One of them is the National Recovery Plan. And this program allocates funds for direct support to energy communities. This relates to action called renewable energy installations implemented by energy communities. And the support involves pre-investment activities in three categories. First, development of existing energy clusters, the developing of existing energy cooperatives, and development of new energy communities operating in the field of renewable energy sources. And this support can be assessed by energy clusters, energy cooperatives, and local government units. And for this program, a budget of nearly 187 million Polish zloty has been allocated. And the most money you can get for a single energy cluster is around 1.5 million zloty. For energy cooperative is about 400,000 zloty, and for a project proposed by a local government unit, it's roughly 1.5 million zloty. And there's another grant program, the grant from the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development offers to cover 50% of the expenses linked to buying, installing, constructing, or upgrading renewable energy installations. And this grant is available to property managers and owners of multi-family buildings. Entities that can get this grant include residential communities and cooperatives, local government bodies, community housing initiatives. And in addition to grant programs, also commercial banks can provide loans with favorable terms for environmental protection projects. And those terms of this loan are more advantageous. There are also opportunities to obtain loans directly from companies that specialize in equipment installation. And another way to fund solar panels actually is by leasing. There are three main types of leasing: operational leasing, financial leasing, and leasing loans. Operational leasing requires the leased money upfront, and the installation stays the property of the financing company. This choice has significant tax benefits. In financial leasing, the one who leases becomes the owners, while in leasing loans, the borrower does. Like leasing usually begin at 10%. The agreement's duration typically varies from 48 to as much as 84 months for operational leasing, and from 6 to 60 months for financial leasing or leasing loans. So I presented the main programs, the main sources that are actually available in Poland for energy communities, and actually not only in urban areas. Yeah, so we can maybe just continue our discussion and Q&A now.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you a lot. Yes, we can, if you have any question to Julia, to Chris, or to Piotr, feel free now, so we can go on with our panel discussion. And I will upload the resources shared on the Community Energy Academy platform. So Chris, if you want to send the report, and we can add it as additional resources together with the self-learning material that has been uploaded. And Julia, if you have any resource that you would like to share, or report, or brief, or anything, feel free to share it with us. And yes, if you have any question, feel free. Bożena, you had a question for Chris, I think.
Yeah, I had the question, just general question, because I'm busy with this renewable energy and policy of Poland and Polish government, and also EU. So my question is for Chris, what are the main barriers in developing the citizens' energy from your point of view of REScoop? Because we have the regulation and we introduce some directive, but when you see for example, from Polish perspective, it seems that there is a really huge barriers, and huge problems to really see the benefits of this renewable energy created by citizens and communities. And if you could kind of say what is the root cause, of these problems.
Well, I think, first of all, to also speak about, the Polish example, but I think it's illustrative of some European-wide examples. I see two main problems in Poland, just based on our discussions with campaigners as well. First of all, there's the issue of corporate capture, because I understand that you guys have these things called energy clusters, which are not really energy cooperatives, and anyone can participate, and it can be big companies, and it can be big players, and that really does not espouse the spirit of the European directives, which is just citizens, small businesses, municipalities. And I think that is a problem generally that is encountered in many other countries. It's encountered in Greece, Spain, Hungary, Portugal. It's all over the place. And the question is, how do we ensure that only genuine citizen-led and energy projects are supported, through public funds, through whatever. This is something we've really stressed quite a lot with the public financing tracker project I mentioned before, that any funds, for example, from the Recovery and Resilience Facility should only be given to genuine energy communities. I'd say one thing is that, I mean, there's so many, there's so many things you could say. I think the geographical aspect is also interesting. The fact that in Poland you cannot have an energy cooperative within an urban center, that seems completely absurd to me, because obviously you have so many people living in apartment buildings in a city. How will they access clean energy if they can't even do, because in many cases, you live in an apartment and you cannot access your rooftop because you're renting. You cannot agree with the other tenants. It's the exact same situation in Greece, but that's why in Greece we have the model that I described with a collective self-consumption, that 100 citizens can create a collective solar park outside of Athens, for example, and then with the energy that is produced there, we meter the energy that is produced in our homes. So I think the geographical aspect as well is quite important. And there is an ongoing revision of the electricity market design. And as REScoop EU and other NGOs, we're pushing quite a lot. Basically, what the Commission wants to do is to ensure that energy sharing, local energy sharing, is available to everyone. It becomes much more mainstream. And we want to do exactly this, to ensure that citizens can indeed access locally an energy sharing scheme by, for example, at the level of the neighborhood, putting solar panels on a building, and then the whole neighborhood is fed with that clean energy. Yeah, and I mean, one last thing I would say, and sorry, I don't know if this is too much information, is that usually, because these are citizen-led voluntary projects, banks or other traditional financial institutions don't really trust them. They don't understand them. Even when, their business case is very solid and it's very bankable, because it's so new. So I think it's going to take a lot more capacity building, a lot more education, a lot of what we're doing here, creating these spaces to understand these business models. Yeah, I hope that partly answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Piotr, as is not his virtual end raised.
I want to add some few words about this issue. The problem in Poland and maybe in other countries is strictly related with the case that energy oligopolies is ruled in some countries like Poland by politicians, and unfortunately energy oligopolies design and introduce to the regulations the structure, the system which is better for their business, not for citizens. And this is the crucial point, I suppose, in many countries, and in Poland especially. But we observe that after the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and when the Polish government spends for the electricity and heat support 100 billion Polish zloty yearly, the authorities realized that it will be better to support citizens and communities. So, as Chris said, this is the absurd that energy community couldn't be established in city center, in the cities. But now we have another concept, resident prosumer. And according to this concept, something like energy cooperatives could be established in the cities, but the circumstances, the system, it's not so attractive for the residents, unfortunately. So if you compare, for instance, the Netherlands and Poland, in the Netherlands 1 year ago, probably, the net billing was changed to the, but slightly to the net billing, very gradually. So the system will be changed in many years. And in the contrary, in Poland, this system changed sharply. So some citizens possess net billing, very attractive, net metering, sorry, net metering, very attractive, mostly individuals, and other citizens, mostly from the multi-flat building, unfortunately, could, based only on the net billing system, which is completely unpredictable. It is very difficult to assume anything. So the payback period is completely unpredictable. So this is probably one of the barrier. But on the other hand, as Julia show us, there is a lot of national programs which support energy communities, energy clusters. So there is a lot of funds, but the net billing system probably is the crucial barrier, according to my perception. Thank you.
Thank you, Piotr. If I might add on this, I think that one other barrier that plays a big role here is also the access to knowledge and the access to information that citizens and communities can have. We already talked about knowledge barriers and what can be the tools that support access to information and knowledge. We saw the example of the one-stop shop for the housing renovation that Chris presented, and like those kind of services and those kind of this kind of support should be also, in my opinion, be provided nationally and from public the governments, because this would then give much more opportunities to respond to the needs of citizens and to the needs of communities that can be in different stages of their development, while now there's not really a lot of awareness about the current programs that are existing on the national, on the local, and on the European level. And if we really want to make this change and give more power and give more space to citizens and communities, this knowledge and information factors plays a big role. And maybe that's a question for you. How do you think that the digitalization and digital means can support this and support also motivate citizens and communities to invest more in energy transition?
But the question is to me or to the Chris?
Everyone, who has. What do you think about this?
So I think that digitalization and digital tools could be very useful for many citizens. But on the other side, we observe that many elderly people have a problem to use such tools. So we should offer also some alternatives, more traditional way to inform people about opportunities, how establish energy communities, how invest which kind of sources could be adopted to the project. So we should deliver the information justice in a different way to the different people, to the different citizens. Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I second what Piotr said, and I will also ask, the two filters of whether we want digitalization. First of all, how much, and when is it smart, and when is it dumb digitalization? Like, for example, yeah, maybe the grandma that doesn't have digital skills, doesn't have a clothes dryer. It just has, she just hangs them on the balcony. But I think that's also a much more efficient and like eco-friendly way to do it. Like, why would we need a clothes dryer? So first of all, how much? And second of all, by whom? Who owns the data? Who installs the technology? Where is it coming from? Where are the rare earth minerals coming from? Is it from the Congo, or is it from, somewhere closer with like no forced labor? One example is, something we are looking at more and more with REScoop is community-led flexibility as well. Like, for example, when you are on the level of the energy community, installing smart meters on the members' households, turning off the device is like, a washing machine, for example, when there is not enough solar power on the grid, so that you basically you shift your consumption based on how much renewable energy is available on the grid. But the difference here is that this data management, this whole like community approach, this sitting down and educating the members is happening by the community itself. It's not just, a private supplier that's coming and saying, I'm going to come into your household and I'm going to install the smart meters, and I'm going to own your data, and I'm going to use this data as a product to offer flexibility services to the grid. And then, the money and the data actually flows back to the private supplier. So yes to digitalization, but let's always be critical of the political economic background on where this digitalization manifests.
Yeah, I completely agree. And everything comes back to the community aspect of it. So also that the solutions can be more flexible to the different communities. Julia from CoopTech Hub, how's the approach to it, and what's the approach of CoopTech Hubs to cooperatives?
Could you again just give me
so this digitalization aspect, how is it approached from Tech Hub to community, to energy communities or to cooperatives?
Actually, we are trying to give some technologies for communities, but as I mentioned, and for example, Piotr mentioned also, that we face, especially in Poland, with other obstacles that are, let's say, more important than focusing on digitalization and technologies. Like, we are trying to, for example, let's say, fight with the law to create urban energy power plant in urban area. So I would sum up that there are more important thing to focus, but of course we have some tools like application for communities, so the data are safe and the owner isn't a big corporation.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else has other questions or remarks or observations. This, I would say we don't.
Maybe I will add something in the end, because it's also coming from our research that we have two different approaches to the energy transition concerning the citizens. either we took the citizens as consumers and we treat them like the other members or other players on the market, and then it's now like this, so the citizens are treated as consumers, so we give them loans, we give them support, donation, but also we think that they will invest in renewable energy if it's profitable for them. And we also put the responsibility to become an expert of investment, of technologies, of different solutions with energy on their shoulders. So to invest in renewable energy at home, you have to be kind of like private household businessman. So we think that the individual consumer citizens can carry the energy transition on their shoulders, and we don't expect that the energy that in society the citizens, when you take the perspective of citizens, then it looks completely different, because the citizens as a member of the society, they have the rights, of course they have the responsibilities, but the rights means that the state and all this public and economic area should be prepared to fulfill the desire to be the owner of the energy and to have the rights to do clean energy. And then it's completely different. So it's the governments and the public, also the private big oligopolies and companies, they have the management skills, they have the financial expertise, they have organizational, all these tools which are necessary to invest in renewable energy. And they have also better access to the money. In Poland, they have the better access to the land. So they now rent or buy the huge amount of public state national land to invest in, for example, in photovoltaic farms and wind farms. So and what I want to say that we still are not clear about the citizen model and consumer model, because we put the consumer on this really aggressive field of economic game, and with other institutions and also other players like private business, and we leave them to compete on this market, and we don't really make real citizens revolution and citizens support. And when we and what's important in the European directives, the name citizens was kind of like implemented into directives, but there is not really any conclusion of this. What does it mean to put the citizens and citizens communities into the directives? Because the system looks like it looked before. This is market system with all the market rules and all the markets instruments. But when what we try to do in the project in our energy communities and energy citizenship, we try to define what does it mean to create an energy transition for citizens, and they put citizens as a citizens with the rights and responsibilities, and then adjust the financial policy, the regulation, and also the instrument to the citizens, not to the consumers, and it's not happening, and we somehow also, we are the part of people which accept using the name of citizens, but really treating them as a consumers only in this limited role. So it's my view, or our view as economists.
Thank you, Bożena. Yes, there should be a integrated coordination of all the aspects then interact with being an energy citizen, from housing to access to information to regulations and planning, urban planning. And so, yeah, definitely we need some work on this.